Humanity stands on the threshold of unprecedented evolution, the merging of mind with technology. Neurointerfaces and implants are no longer the stuff of science fiction and are entering the reality of our days. These devices promise not just to improve communication, they can fundamentally change the very concept of human interaction. Already today, experimental systems allow paralyzed patients to control robotic limbs with the power of thought. Chips implanted in the brain help restore lost sight and hearing. But this is only the beginning of the journey. Before us opens the prospect of direct exchange of thoughts, sensations, and emotions between people. Telepathy, which has become a technological reality. Along with incredible opportunities come serious questions. What will happen to our identity when the boundaries between mind and machine blur? Who will control access to our thoughts? How will society and human relationships change? The neurotechnological revolution is inevitable, but its direction depends on the decisions we make today. The idea of connecting the brain to a machine originated long before the technical capabilities for its implementation. In mid-20th century science fiction literature, concepts of direct connection between the human mind and computers already appeared. Writers like Arthur C. Clarke and William Gibson anticipated the era of neurointerfaces, describing in their works technologies allowing people to directly connect to information networks. But the scientific foundation for these fantasies only began to form in the 1960s, when researchers first recorded the electrical activity of individual brain neurons. The first practical experiments with neurointerfaces were conducted in the 1970s, when scientists were able to teach monkeys to control simple mechanisms with the power of thought. A real breakthrough occurred in the 1990s, when a team of researchers from Emory University implanted electrodes into the brain of a paralyzed patient, allowing him to control a cursor on a computer screen. This marked the first successful application of an invasive neurointerface for humans. Since then, technological development has rapidly accelerated. BrainGate developed systems allowing paralyzed individuals to control robotic limbs. Control Labs created a bracelet that reads nerve signals from the forearm to control digital devices. And Elon Musk's Neuralink project is working on creating high-performance implantable brain-computer interfaces with thousands of electrodes, capable of simultaneously reading and stimulating the activity of a huge number of neurons. From scientific hypotheses and literary fantasies to clinical trials and commercial developments, the path of neurointerfaces reflects humanity's astonishing ability to turn the boldest dreams into reality. How do these amazing devices, allowing our brains to communicate directly with computers, actually work? Modern neurointerfaces are divided into three main categories. Invasive systems require surgical intervention and the placement of electrodes directly into brain tissue. They provide the highest accuracy in signal reading, but carry risks associated with surgery. Semi-invasive interfaces are located on the surface of the brain, under the skull, without penetrating neural tissue. Non-invasive devices work externally, reading brain activity through the scalp. Each of these approaches uses different methods for recording neural activity. Electroencephalography, or EEG, captures electrical potentials from the surface of the head. Functional magnetic resonance imaging tracks blood flow in different brain regions, identifying active areas. Electrocorticography records signals directly from the surface of the cerebral cortex. However, recording signals is only half the battle. The real magic happens during their processing. Special algorithms filter out noise, extract meaningful patterns, and transform chaotic neural activity into meaningful digital commands. Machine learning plays a key role here, helping the system adapt to the unique characteristics of each user's brain. Over time, The neurointerface and the human form a symbiotic relationship, where both sides learn to understand each other better and better. Medical applications of neural interfaces are already offering hope to thousands of patients with severe neurological disorders. These technologies literally restore lost capabilities to those who have lost them due to injuries or illnesses. In clinics worldwide, people with paralysis are regaining control over their bodies. 32-year-old Jason, completely paralyzed after a car accident, can now control a robotic arm simply by imagining the desired movements. Electrodes implanted in his motor cortex read neural signals and convert them into commands for the prosthesis. Equally impressive results are demonstrated by systems for restoring sensory functions. Patients with complete vision loss receive visual information through electrodes stimulating the visual cortex of the brain. Although such vision is currently limited to recognizing simple shapes and contrasts, for many, it is a true miracle to see the silhouette of a loved one after decades of darkness. Cochlear implants, connected to neural interfaces, help restore hearing, even in cases where traditional hearing aids are powerless. Revolutionary changes are also occurring in the treatment of epilepsy. Smart neuroimplants can recognize characteristic patterns of brain activity preceding a seizure and prevent it with targeted electrical stimulation. For patients with Parkinson's disease, deep brain stimulation through neural interfaces significantly reduces tremor and stiffness of movement, restoring the ability to perform daily activities independently. Each such case is not just a medical breakthrough, but also a deeply personal story of returning to a full life, regaining lost independence and dignity. Imagine a world where learning a new language takes not years, but days, where memories never fade and concentration doesn't waver even after hours of intense work. A world where you can mentally communicate with other people or instantly access any information simply by thinking about it. These are the prospects that neural interfaces open up for cognitive enhancement in healthy individuals. Experimental devices are already demonstrating amazing potential for improving memory. Electrical stimulation of certain areas of the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory formation, can significantly enhance the ability to remember and retrieve information. Study participants show a 20 to 30% improvement in memory test results after such stimulation. In the field of education, neural interfaces can create a real revolution, allowing knowledge to be directly uploaded into the brain, bypassing traditional methods. Although a full-fledged uploading of skills in the style of the movie The Matrix remains a fantasy for now, systems that accelerate learning by optimizing brain activity are already being developed. They identify individual activity patterns during successful information assimilation and help reproduce these states. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of cognitive enhancement is the creation of fundamentally new communication channels. Researchers have already demonstrated a primitive form of technological telepathy, the transmission of simple signals from brain to brain over the internet. In an experiment, one person, connected to an EEG, mentally chose a movement in a computer game, and the system transmitted this signal to another person, causing involuntary movement of their hand to perform the same command. Imagine communication where you don't need words, where thoughts, feelings, and images are transmitted directly from one mind to another, overcoming all language barriers and cultural differences. Neurointerfaces open the door to precisely such a world. The first experiments in direct neurocommunication are already showing astonishing results. In 2021, scientists at Stanford University were able to create a system allowing two people to exchange simple sensory perceptions without any external display devices. One participant, looking at a specific color, transmitted this perception directly to the brain of the other, who literally saw the same hue, although their eyes perceived a completely different picture. The possibilities of such communication extend far beyond the simple transfer of information. Emotional resonance between people can reach an unprecedented level when we can not just describe our feelings, but share them directly. True empathy will cease to be an abstract concept and will become a tangible experience. Language barriers, which have separated humanity for centuries, may completely disappear. Concepts and ideas will be transmitted in their pure form, without translation distortions. Neurocommunication is capable of generating entirely new forms of social interaction. Collective problem-solving will reach a new level when a group of people can form a temporary collective mind, combining intellectual resources to achieve a common goal. However, this path is not without difficulties. How to preserve the privacy of thoughts in a world where minds can connect? How will our social norms change when lying becomes practically impossible? Neurocommunication is not just a new technology, but a fundamental evolutionary step capable of changing the very concept of human personality and society. Connecting the brain to technology inevitably changes not only the ways we communicate, but also our very consciousness. The human psyche is a plastic system, evolved over millennia to perceive the world through sensory organs. What happens when we add new channels of perception? Our brain adapts, reorganizes neural connections, forms new cognitive maps. Patients with neuroimplants report an astonishing phenomenon. The devices are gradually perceived not as external objects, but as natural parts of the body and mind. This process of neuroplasticity opens up both opportunities and risks. On the one hand, people with implants demonstrate an increased ability for multitasking and information processing. On the other hand, new psychological disorders arise: information overload syndrome, dissociative states, blurring of personal boundaries. Adolescents, whose brains are still forming, prove to be particularly vulnerable. The question of identity becomes central. Who am I, if my thoughts can be augmented or altered by technology? Where does my personality end and the influence of the device begin? Paradoxically, neurointerfaces simultaneously create mental health problems and open up revolutionary methods for their treatment. Direct stimulation of certain brain areas allows for effective combat against depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress. Patients with bipolar disorder gain the ability to stabilize emotional fluctuations without the side effects of traditional medications. With the advent of the ability to directly connect to the human brain, we face unprecedented ethical challenges. Where is the line for permissible intervention in the most intimate part of our being, our mind? The question of informed consent takes on an entirely new dimension when it comes to technologies capable of reading and even altering our thoughts. Can we truly understand all the consequences of such intervention before giving consent? The right to mental privacy becomes fundamental in an era when thoughts can be digitized. Our reflections, memories, fantasies, everything that for centuries remained absolutely personal is now potentially accessible for reading and analysis. Social inequality also acquires a new dimension. If neuroenhancement becomes available only to the chosen few, will this not create an insurmountable chasm between a cognitively enhanced elite and the rest of humanity? People with access to technologies for memory enhancement, accelerated learning, and telepathic communication will gain unprecedented advantages in education, careers, and social influence. The deepest question that neurointerfaces pose to us is, what makes a human being human? If our thoughts, emotions, and even decisions can be technologically augmented or altered, what will remain of our autonomy and authenticity? The ancient philosophical concept of the soul gains new relevance in the context of technologies capable of transforming the very foundation of our consciousness. In a world where thoughts become digital data, a completely new type of vulnerability emerges: neurohacking. While traditional cyber attacks threaten our devices and data, hacking a neural interface can jeopardize human consciousness itself. Unauthorized access to an implanted device opens up unprecedented possibilities for manipulation, from reading personal thoughts to directly influencing perception and behavior. Cybersecurity specialists describe alarming scenarios. An attacker could implant false memories, distort sensory perception, induce artificial emotions, or even subtly influence decision-making. A victim of such an attack might not realize the interference, perceiving imposed thoughts as their own. Attacks on the neural interfaces of public figures and strategic decision-makers pose a particular danger. Such influence could alter the course of political events or provoke economic crises. Protection against neurohacking requires fundamentally new approaches to security. Traditional encryption methods must be supplemented by biometric authentication at the level of neural patterns, a kind of thought print unique to each person. The architecture of neural interfaces should include isolated modules with different access levels and physical switches allowing for complete data transmission shutdown. Special attention is paid to developing methods for detecting anomalies in neural activity that may indicate external interference. Creating robust protection for neurodata is not just a technical task, but an ethical imperative. The mass adoption of neurointerfaces will inevitably lead to tectonic shifts in the structure of society. We stand on the threshold of forming new social classes, where the dividing line will not be wealth or origin, but the degree of neurotechnological integration. A cognitively enhanced elite with access to premium neurointerfaces will gain unprecedented advantages: accelerated learning, expanded analytical capabilities, instant access to information, and telepathic communication within closed neural networks. For them, the world will become fundamentally different, with opportunities unavailable to the majority. Concurrently, a class of digital outcasts will form, people without access to neuroenhancement, whose cognitive abilities will seem primitive compared to the enhanced elite. The labor market will undergo a revolution comparable to industrialization and computerization combined. Entire professional categories will disappear as neuro-enhanced specialists will be able to perform the work of dozens of ordinary people. Political systems will also face transformation. Democracy in its current form may be threatened if decisions are made by people with fundamentally different levels of cognitive abilities. There will be a need for a new social contract that takes into account the realities of the neurotechnological era. A need will arise for fundamentally new laws concerning neuro rights, the protection of mental privacy, and the regulation of neuroenhancement. Humanity will have to find a balance between technological progress and social justice, so that the neurotechnological revolution does not turn into a catalyst for unprecedented social stratification. As neurotechnologies develop, it becomes clear that traditional ethical norms and legislative mechanisms are insufficient to regulate this unprecedented field. Neuroethics, a young discipline at the intersection of neuroscience, philosophy, and jurisprudence, is called upon to create a foundation for the responsible development of brain-computer interface technologies. In 2018, a group of leading neuroscientists published a manifesto calling for the creation of an international agreement on neuro rights. This document highlights 5 fundamental rights: the right to mental privacy, to personal identity, to free will, to equal access to neuroenhancement, and to protection from algorithmic discrimination. Many countries have already begun to form specialized bioethics committees with separate divisions dealing with neurotechnologies. Chile became the first state to constitutionally enshrine the concept of neuro rights, recognizing the brain and mental processes as objects of special protection. The European Union is developing a comprehensive regulatory framework, including mandatory certification of neurodevices and strict protocols for clinical trials. Special attention is paid to issues of informed consent, how to ensure a full understanding of the risks of technology capable of altering the very foundation of personality. The regulation of neurotechnologies requires the participation of many stakeholders. The scientific community provides expertise and develops technical safety standards. Human rights organizations advocate for the interests of patients and potential users. Representatives of religious denominations raise fundamental questions about the spiritual aspects of intervention in the human mind. Corporations investing billions in the development of neuro interfaces strive for a balance between innovation and ethical limitations. The emerging consensus suggests a multi-level approach to regulation, from voluntary industry standards to mandatory international agreements and national legislation. Standing at the crossroads of neurotechnological evolution, humanity must make a conscious choice about its future. The entire path we have traversed, from fantastic ideas to real implants, has led us to a moment when technology is capable not just of complementing, but of transforming human nature itself. Neurointerfaces are not merely tools, they are becoming an extension of our consciousness, blurring the millennia-old boundaries between mind and the external world. We see two possible paths of development. The first is an unbridled technological race, where economic interests and military advantages overshadow ethical considerations. Such a path could lead to a deep societal schism, the emergence of a neuro-enhanced elite, and new forms of mind control. The second path is a conscious, ethically sound movement where technologies serve to unleash human potential, overcome diseases, and create new forms of empathy and mutual understanding among people. The choice between these paths is not an abstract question for the distant future. It is being decided here and now, in laboratories, corporate offices, and government cabinets. Neurointerfaces can become humanity's greatest gift or a curse. They are capable of expanding the boundaries of our perception, connecting minds, and creating a collective intelligence of unprecedented power. Or they can turn into a tool of unprecedented enslavement, when the most intimate part of a person, their thoughts, becomes an object of manipulation. The future of neurotechnologies is a mirror reflecting not only technical progress, but also our wisdom, ethical maturity, and ability to preserve humanity in an age of merging with machines.